Welcome. This is the Title IV Part A, Subpart 1, Student Support and Academic Enrichment, School System, Program Monitoring Validations Training. The Program Monitoring Validation will only request documentation for selected requirements from the past school year. However, a school system must ensure it has documentation on file for all Title IV Part A program requirements. This section will provide a brief overview of the program purpose and the indicators that will be validated. In this presentation, I will discuss the description of Title IV Part A funded programs and activities indicators. This presentation is intended solely to provide general information and guidance to Texas school systems, education service centers, nonprofit subgrantees, and participating private schools receiving equitable services. The content in this presentation reflects the Texas Education Agency's current understanding of statute and applicable federal guidance. The content of this presentation is subject to change as a result of future guidance and/or other updates provided by federal agencies within regulatory oversight of these programs. This presentation does not constitute legal advice, and entities are therefore advised to seek legal counsel regarding the information and guidance provided in this presentation before acting upon the information provided. Artificial intelligence disclaimer. Recording or use of artificial intelligence. The Texas Education Agency, or TEA, does not permit third-party recording or the use of artificial intelligence, AI, summary services during its grants-related trainings. Attendees of the TEA's grants-related trainings may not use AI services, language models, applications, interfaces, or assistants to attend, review, or record the trainings. TEA further prohibits any person or entity from using the information included in its grants-related trainings to train AI technologies. Any attendees of TEA's grant-related trainings who violate this prohibition may be removed from the trainings and may be barred from attending future grants-related trainings. Please note that documentation for viral meetings is an acceptable form of documentation. Given the increase of virtual meeting environments, participant rosters that include the meeting title, meeting date, and stakeholder names and roles would be acceptable substitutes for the more traditional sign-in sheets. This eliminates the need of a participant signature. Documentation requested. Take note of these items. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure overall compliance with program requirements, school systems should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained locally. The documentation requested for submission during the validation process may not include all forms of documentation that are required to be maintained locally. I want to share a brief reminder on the Title IV Part A program's intent and purpose. The program intent and purpose is to provide all students with access to a well-rounded education, to improve school conditions for a safe and healthy student learning environment, and to improve technology for the enhancement of academic outcomes and digital literacy of all students. The program monitoring validation items are aligned with the Title IV Part A program intent and purpose. The ESA statute requirement for the description of Title IV Part A programs and activities may be found in Section 4106, and it states that each application submitted under this section by an LEA or consortium of such agencies shall include a description of the activities and programs that the local education agency or consortium of such agencies will carry out under this subpart. The description of those Title IV programs and activities must include any partnership with an institution of higher education, business, nonprofit organization, community-based organization, or other public or private entity with a demonstrated record of success in implementing activities under this subpart. If applicable, how funds will be used in the activities related to supporting well-rounded education, as well as activities supporting safe and healthy students and the effective use of technology in schools. As far as assurances that relate to the Title IV Part A program, you may find a complete list of program-related assurances in the document on TEA grant opportunities under the ESA Consolidated Application, Program-Specific Provisions and Assurances. And so the assurance for the description of Title IV programs and activities is the LEA will provide a description of programs and activities funded to support the program objectives and intended outcomes related to a well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, and the effective use of technology. Documenting overall compliance for a program requirement may require several forms of documentation to be maintained locally and available upon request by TEA and/or an auditor. To ensure overall compliance with those program requirements, the school system should refer to the program guide and/or other program-related resources that reference the multiple forms of documentation required to be maintained. On the compliance report, one of the program compliance self-check items state that the school system has a description of programs and activities funded with Title IV Part A to support the program objectives and intended measurable outcomes related to a well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, and the effective use of technology. Acceptable documentation includes relevant pages of the past year's district improvement plan or other official auditable documentation, providing a detailed description on how Title IV Part A funds were used for activities supporting one of the content areas, well-rounded education, safe and healthy students, or the effective use of technology. Documentation required, again, includes those relevant pages of the most current district improvement plan, campus improvement plan, or other auditable documentation. There are some issues that may cause an improvement needed status, and that would be a school system submitting auditable documentation requested for the incorrect school year, or documentation submitted did not provide a detailed description on how Title IV Part A funds were used to support program and activities during the school year. Another common issue that school systems have failed to meet is documentation did not align with the requested description. So ensure that the documentation that you are submitting does actually align with the requested description of programs and activities, and that you're submitting that documentation in the year in which it was requested. To ensure a better way of documentation being streamlined and meeting the expectations and the compliance requirements of TEA, it is highly recommended that you share your documentation with your local education service center before submitting that documentation to TEA. Now I'd like to share a few examples of resources and support. There are program monitoring validations process online resources. For example, there are program monitoring validation process handbooks, instructions for how to submit documentation through the work app. There's a training video, and there's also the training slides for this particular training. Program specific resources are available under the guidance documents for each program and requirement, as well as those videos and training slides that are program specific. And you may see all of the program resources are available by clicking on the ESA Program Monitoring Validations webpage link at the bottom of this presentation. Here are a few resources that are on the Title IV Part A page. There is a guidance document, and this is an example that you can see here. We'll also have the training slides as well as the training video. School system staff should review the most current program monitoring validations process handbook. It includes an introduction, general information, a timeline of the program monitoring validation process from the point of school systems being notified through the TEA final results that are shared. In addition, school systems must follow the instructions for submitting the documentation through the Federal Program Compliance Program Monitoring Validation Work App. The PMV Process Handbook also provides resources and tools to help the school system with specific program guidance for the selected validation and a seamless transition through the PMV submission process. School systems may also receive support from their local education service center as a complimentary technical assistance and training service. You may find the ESC contacts for each regional center on the TEA Title IV Part A webpage. Thank you for attending this virtual training session. If you have questions, please let me know. Have a wonderful day.